everyone and welcome back to Mining Network. So I'm joined with Gary Thompson here, who is Chairman and CEO of Brixton Metals. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Very welcome, glad to be here.
So let's just start by getting a nice overview of Brixton. Sure,
well Brixton's a junior exploration company focused on copper, gold, silver, largely in British Columbia. And we have a number of other assets that are, some are under joint venture, some that we're working as well.
Brilliant. So could you just share with us the market cap, share structure, how much cash is in the bank, just a little bit about the finance there?
Yeah, so we're in a bit of a transition because, well, I guess prior to our recent announcement, we're about 50 million market cap with about 300 million shares out, with about 5 million cash. And we're just in the process of closing on our exciting news with the investment by BHP, the world's largest diversified miner. So we're pretty excited about that. So on a pro forma basis, that'll put us around 380 million shares with somewhere around 18 million in cash.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting, the BHP deal. So what do you plan to do with that, new financing? What's the plan with that?
Well, it's all going to be focused on Thorn. I mean, Thorn is our flagship project in northwest British Columbia. It's a large-scale copper gold porphyry district, and I really mean a district because we've got multiple targets over a huge area, some 80-kilometer megatrend we're calling it, and we believe that there's more than one porphyry center. So we're just looking to unlock that value, not only with the capital, but obviously working with the technical group at BHP to, find the center of these things sooner than later.
Yeah, definitely. So before we dive into more detail with Thorn, could you just give us a bit of information about the other projects? Because you do have 2 monetized projects as well, don't you?
The company has 4 projects, so Thorn being the flagship project in BC. We also have another project in BC called the Tahltan Goldfields, and this was a historic placer mining camp. Back in the Yukon gold rush in the late 1800s, they found placer gold in Tahltan, and they've been mining gold there since then. But the goal there was for Brixton to acquire this asset and try and find the source of all that placer gold. But we've recently farmed that out to a company called Pacific Bay. So they have the option to earn into the project. So we'll see some cash. They have some work commitments and shares, obviously payment shares, for that. And then the other asset we have that we farmed out is in Montana. It's called Hog Heaven, and it's actually quite an interesting project because it had a lot of work historically, over 700 drill holes. There was a feasibility study on that project in the late 80s, and they were going to build the mine. They had a permit to build the mine. And then, of course, 1990 hit, price of gold and silver fell off the cliff, and I really sat idle for a number of years. And so we struck a deal with HPX, which is now Ivanhoe Electric. So it's one of Robert Friedland's new companies. It's just recently IPO'd in the US. And this Hog Heaven project is one of the 3 assets really focused on copper. So it's a copper, silver, gold project, and so we're excited to be working with that group. The deal was they have to spend 40 million US over 11 years to get 75%, and then Brixton will receive 4.5 million US over 6 years. So if they meet those obligations, spend the money, they'll have 75% of the project. So we have an opportunity to retain some of that value.
So let's go into Thorn a little bit. So could we just set the scene of the geology there and maybe in context of the Golden Triangle, for those of us not familiar, like what is the geology of the Golden Triangle? What's so special there?
I think what's unique about it is that you've got multiple intrusive events that are driving the copper gold mineralization. It's got to be one of the most mineral rich districts in the world, and it's over a long period of time. We've done some age dating, at least on our property, but if you look at the rest of the trend there, you've got intrusive rocks, porphyry mineralization, cutting, favorable Stuhini group volcanics for the most part. We're seeing ages from like 50 million years, 100 million years, 200 million years. So you've got multiple events over a long period of time, geologic time, and that provides more opportunity, just more events, multiple events. Is usually what you want to see, more complex phases, multiple phases of intrusive phases that are driving the mineralization. And I think that's part of the reason why it's so good. It's just got the right geology at the end of the day.
And now your Thorn project, the land package is quite large. Do you have many, what's the neighbour situation like out there?
Don't have a lot of neighbours because we've done a lot of acquisitions over time. I mean, we do have Newmont now with their recent acquisition at the Heart Peaks project. We're not far from some mines. Just on the state side, you've got Hecla's Greens Creek mining operation. And then about less than 200 kilometers away, you have Newcrest's and Imperial Metals, Red Chris mine. So we've got a big land position there. There are some other juniors, I guess, on the trend. But we certainly have lots to chew on with the, I think, identified 14 target areas on the Thorn project.
Wow.
And we're really just working on a handful of them at the moment.
Wow, so with 14 targets, how are you splitting the drill program or the current program?
Well, a lot of the targets are still pretty early. We're just in the geochem, prospecting, geophysics. We did a fair amount of geophysics this year and got a lot of boots on the ground to get those earlier stage targets up to the drill ready stage. So we're in that process on, I'd say, most of them. Most of the drilling this year, we completed over 18,000 meters of drilling in 2022. And that was largely focused on the Camp Creek porphyry, which is a deep, newly discovered porphyry there. And then the Trapper target, which is more of a shallow gold target called Trapper. And so most of the drilling was on those two areas, although we did test a few other satellite targets. But yeah, the bulk of that 18,000 is really split between Camp Creek and Trapper.
Brilliant. And what's the sort of time frame for the rest of the targets? Like, how long do you think it'll take for the boots on the ground to develop into potential drill targets?
Well, that's largely a function of budgets, and it's just allocation of capital on where their, I guess, priorities are. So that's a process we go through every year to see how those ones rank up and how much work we're able to get on. Some of them we wanted to get to, didn't quite get to because we got busy over here and didn't get over there. And so it's just a process to go through, but we had some really interesting surface sampling at a new target called Metla. So we just got going on that this year, so it's our first real season on that target. So we're pretty excited with what we're seeing there because we're sampling some nice high-grade copper mineralization at surface that was never sampled before because it was under ice a couple of years ago. So the glacial receding has opened up some new prospective ground for us. So we're excited about that and some other targets that maybe haven't been sampled before because of that. So I think we have a lot of work to do yet, and it would just be a systematic process to go through that. Likely some more geophysics. We know that geochem's working because we are getting good results from that. The guys are constantly bringing back new boulders of high-grade copper mineralization. So we're excited that we're continuing to see that come out. And yeah, it's just a process, systematic process to go through and get more samples and then get them ready to drill. So I think 2023 is going to be an exciting year. Hopefully we can do more work at Metla and maybe get some drills turning there and look for some big new discoveries because we think this project has that potential for large-scale targets and obviously BHP thinks so. Coming in, so that's a huge endorsement for the project and for the geological team at Brixton. So we're happy and looking forward to working with them on that.
You mentioned there a little bit about like the ice retreating, and you are in British Columbia. What is the infrastructure like there? Obviously the weather and the extremities of where this site's actually located. How do you overcome those things?
There's some infrastructure challenges there. In 2011, there was an airstrip established and a new camp established, what we're our main Thorn Camp now, which has really changed how we operate. Historically, they would come into the lakes there by float plane and then helicopter around the specific target areas. So having that new camp and airstrip, I always say you can leave Vancouver in the morning, you could be in camp for lunch, which you cannot say about a lot of places in Northwest BC. So it's actually pretty good and certainly improved. There was a road to the south end of the property when there was a mine called the Golden Bear mine that shut down in 2000. So there was a road that was accessing that southern end. But we're of course working more on the northern end at the moment. And then we do have some opportunity to potentially build some infrastructure to Tidewater. We're actually not that far from Tidewater. I think the southern end of the block is about 65 kilometers from Tidewater. So we're looking at it as a long-term alternative, is to build some infrastructure. And I guess the way I look at these things is you find something exciting and big enough, and those infrastructure items just become a line item to advance, and obviously got to do the engineering and permitting work on it. But that's sort of something we have to work towards as we advance the resources and the development of a mine. But I think we have a ways to go on that yet.
Yeah, it's all part of it. And I for one, I've been on that airstrip. You know, I've seen some of the infrastructure in place, and yeah, it's pretty impressive, the Thorn Camp especially. Obviously, you are in British Columbia. In terms of the First Nation and other stakeholders in the area, how do you kind of deal with those relations? Yeah,
we have an overlapping First Nations. We're working in the Tahltan First Nations territory, which is an overlap with the Taku River Tlingit First Nations. We've been very active and proactive working with the First Nations. We do have governing agreements with both the Taku River Tlingit and Tahltan, and so we're looking for local talent as much as we can attract, and we've been successful so far. I think this year was a record for us, with somewhere between 20 and 25% of First Nations employment and First Nations contractors on site. So I think we're ahead of the curve and higher than the average from that. So we're continue to build on those relationships, and we see the First Nations as partners in the project, and so it's an opportunity to extend benefits to everybody and all the stakeholders involved, and we certainly need that local talent as well. So we're looking to train up the locals and as much as we can, that people are interested in the various tasks. So I think it's a good working relationship so far, and continue to work on that.
Yeah, brilliant. So you mentioned about drilling, obviously, the specific targets at the Thorn Project. As a company, are you also doing any drill programs elsewhere?
Yeah, we just started some drilling in our project in Ontario. It's called Langus. It was a past producing silver mine, and I think we're going to drill about up towards 7,000 meters perhaps. And it's more of a silver nickel cobalt play. I mean, historically they mined high grade silver there, which is why we originally acquired it. But what we've kind of learned over the, few years is that the nickel and cobalt seem to be doing their own thing, and where the silver kind of does its own thing, but sometimes they're mixed. So it's a bit of a puzzle trying to figure out that geologically what's going on. So we want to test some of these nickel cobalt domains or trends to see if that can maybe shine a little bit of a spotlight on that, because it hasn't really been looked at in the camp, because it's a well-known silver camp, but maybe the nickel cobalt has kind of been ignored a little bit. And of course, with the big move in battery metals, we think we can attract some interest, and just because of that.
With those drill cores, can we expect results next year?
Yeah, we're just starting to drill now. So we drilled about 18,000 at Thorn. I think we've released about 3, so we still have about 15,000 meters to come out from Thorn. Mm-hmm. So I suspect over the next 2 or 3 months we should get most of that out. And then probably sometime after that, maybe towards the spring, perhaps we'll start to see some of the Langus. There might be some overlap in there, but yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of news flow between now and springtime 2023.
So let's just talk a little bit about your team. What's their experience like, and yourself? What's your background that kind of makes you experienced to be running a project like this?
Well, I'm a geologist by training. I've probably got north of 25 years experience. Not all in mining, but most of my experience is in mineral exploration, and generally on the earlier stage side of things. To me, that's the most exciting part, is making those new discoveries. Christina Anstey is our VP Exploration. She spent 5 years at the Brucejack deposit, and now a very exciting gold mine there. We have Brock Riedel as a veteran porphyry guy that's really been helping us target these things. And we have a lot of geologists. We have about a team of about 12 geologists that are working on the project. So we're still learning. It's a learning curve process for sure, and obviously we'll be working with the BHP technical team to help build our skills and try and unlock the value. But really, it's all about getting boots on the ground, getting out there and finding stuff. We've got a young team of hungry geologists looking for the next big discovery, and so I think we have a lot to learn, but I think there's a lot to discover there too. So,
well, that's the exciting part of it. It is all new discoveries, because there's a bit of history with Thorn. It has been drilled since the 1950s, isn't there? But there's a lot of unexplored areas.
Yeah, I think the first drill hole that we've been able to recognize was 1969, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But Kenco was in there in the 50s. Kaminko was in there in the 50s. I think there's a Chevron was in there in the 80s. There's, as far as we can tell, at least a dozen previous operators.
Yeah.
But I'd say most of the budgets were fairly small. And in fact, even our budgets up until the last few years have been fairly small budgets. So we're starting to see more capital, I guess, becoming attracted to the opportunity here, obviously because of the scale potential. So yeah, we're excited. That's kind of changing. We're starting to see a little more action on the ground. So first time we've ever had a couple drills turning all season, and we ended the season with 3 drills. So I think we're in this sort of ramp up phase.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting, especially when there's like unexplored sort of areas. So let's just finish on a nice one what's your vision for Brixton over the next 5 years? Like, where do you see it going, or would you like to see it go?
Well, I think, again, there's so many discovery opportunities here to be made. So we're looking for the next big discovery, and although we have a couple in hand already with Camp Creek and Trap, we want to build those out because those are exciting targets in their own right, but we don't want to, overlook something that could be even more exciting and new. So I think just building out the company, building out the project to its real potential, and hopefully we can get at that sooner than later. And I think the next 5 years is going to be exciting for Brixton. We obviously want to build our team. We're about a dozen strong now, and you're on site, so we had up to about 50 people there in camp. So that's going to grow, I think, grow the team, grow the targets, and perhaps we could see many more drills coming to site and many more targets to advance. So it's going to be an exciting 5 years for sure.
Definitely. And over the past 12 months, what are you most proud of your company achieving?
Well, I think just making the discoveries that we've made. The fact that we were able to get 18,000 meters completed this year, which is a record for the project. And also just building out the team with the great work that Christina has done, building out the geological team. I mean, we're really proud of that. We've got a good, solid team, and we've done a great job in advancing that project. And obviously, being able to attract a company like BHP is pretty rewarding. That says a lot about the team and the project. So that's kind of a proud way to end the year.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Gary. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing what happens over the next few years.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.